As the recent fuel tanker fire in the country dominates national discourse, the frequency of these incidents in the last few weeks, the role of Nigerians in handling materials that cause fire, and response time to these fires informs our focus on Panorama today. Thanks for joining us. I am Lydia Odije Ochi. An accidented fuel tanker is currently spilling fuel at Ozumba Mbadiwe, Victoria Island in Lagos. The Lagos State Emergency Response Plan officials and other stakeholders are at the scene of the accident to prevent a fire outbreak. Residents of the area are advised to take another route until further notice. In the meantime, Lagos State Emergency Management Agency advises against the use of fire around the area to prevent disaster. And now joining us live to talk more on the recent fire tanker disaster is the Assistant Comptroller General, FCT Fire Service, Julius Okwetunsi. Welcome to Panorama.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah. Now, recently there have been alarming number of fire resulting from tankers.
Yes.
Now, the one in Onitsha is still fresh in our minds. Yes. What actually went wrong?
I think when such thing happened, people, the driver, the tanker drivers, even the residents, and the people around should be very, very careful. For example, a tanker fire is a very dangerous fire, and when it happens, it spreads. And if care is not taken, if that fire is not attacked, immediately, it can be a devastating situation. When that fire happened, thank God we have there is a functional fire service in Anambra State, and I think they turn out. And there is another fire station at Asaba, which is another zone headquarters, which a federal fire service has dispatched 2 brand new firefighters vehicle into that place. I know immediately they called them at the control room in federal fire service. They turned out that fire station in Asaba. But for them to even move, through that bridge, that Niger bridge, to get to the scene of the incident, became very difficult because of the traffic jam. I know the people around that place too, did not even help matter. Because, when fire incidents happen like that, when you call fire service, the fire service will turn out, people to be able to give them a right of way on road to get to that fire incident on time. But this thing did not happen, and the angry mob too, they didn't know the time they called them, and not putting into consideration the type of traffic jam they met on the way. They started stoning them. This one will not help matters. We just have to be patient. Fire service, we are human beings, and our duty is to protect life and property of the residents.
Okay. Now, sir, response time to fire outbreaks is really important, because
very, very important.
Lives can be saved, property can be also preserved. Yes. Now, this has been an issue of concern among Nigerians. Why does it take so long for the fire service to respond to fire outbreaks?
No, thank you very much. People used to misunderstand this situation. The time you call fire service is the time that they record that they will record on their time that there's a fire call at so place. When people look, they will time that. For example, if there's fire outbreak in a place now by 5 a.m., it might not even be the owner of that premises that will call fire service. It might be a passersby that will call fire service. And it is the time you call the fire service that the fire service will know that, yes, there is a fire incident somewhere. But the response time take effect from the time of call, to the time they arrive at the scene of the incident. So our advice is that when there is fire incident like that, make sure you call the fire service, I mean, nearest to you, fire station nearest to the place of the incident.
And we're
on
sure
time.
that they will respond in time.
Very, very well.
All right.
That's our duty.
Okay, now, most of the fire incidents that occur, it's a result of trucks malfunctioning and sometimes left unattended to.
Yes.
So what plans are on ground to ensure that there is a change, especially on the part of the owners and drivers of these trucks?
In fact, I just have to advise them, before you put a vehicle, most especially tankers, on the road, make sure that the vehicle is very functional. I mean, the brake, everything, every part of the vehicle has to be serviced, because most of these tanker fire incidents usually happen probably when the driver, lose control because of a brake failure and other things. But if everything has been taken care of, there won't be much problem, as to that.
Okay. Now, many states of the country do not have functional firefighting departments. I stand to be corrected. Now, the Comptroller General has been commissioning fire equipment and stations across the country recently.
Yes.
Will this change the narrative of response, especially in states?
Yes, it has to change. It will change. Like most of the states that even have a functional fire station, they may not have as many as 10 functional fire stations within the state. There are some states that we just have at the state capital, and probably in one or two other big cities in the state. And this is not supposed to be. Every local government in the state supposed to have a functional fire station, because that's what will reduce the response time. For example, in FCT, we have at least 14 functional stations in FCT. Okay. So and when there is fire, you turn out the nearest fire station to the scene of the incident, and that's what helps us to maintain 5 minutes response time in FCT. Okay. So if the governors can pay more interest in upgrading the fire service in all the states, it will be better, because they will be able to protect lives and property in that state.
Thank you very much for coming on Panorama.
Thank you very much.
We've been talking to the Assistant Comptroller General FCT Fire Service, Julius Okpetutsi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, away from fire issues, the federal government and Labour have agreed on 23.2, 20, 19, 16 and 14 percentages for officials on levels 7, 8, 9, 10 to 4. 2019. Austin Anyebe has the details.
After 3 consecutive days of negotiation between the federal government and organized labor on the consequential adjustment of salaries arising from the new Minimum Wage Act of 2019, both parties have arrived at a compromise.
Having reviewed the increase in the lowest paid person in this wage structure at 30,000 naira for grade level 1, step 1, that the grade level 07 officers should move up by 23.2% in their wage structure, in their wages. Grade level 08, 20%. Grade level 09, that's grade level 9, 19% increase. Grade level 10 to 14, 16% increase. Grade level 15 to 17, 14% increase.
The minister also explained that the adjustment was made for federal government workers on other salary structures.
The people in this compartment are people on the consolidated health system scale, CONHES, consolidated research institute scheme, CONRISE, and the one for the teachers, CONTEAS 2, and those for CONWAS 2. Connes, Contedis, and Comcast. For officers on this wage structure, grade level 7 or its equivalent had an increase of 23.2%. Grade level 8 to 14 and its equivalent had 16% increase. And grade level 15 to 17 or its equivalent had a 10.5% increase.
He said similar adjustments were made for personnel of the military and paramilitary, which shall be communicated to them since they were not represented in the negotiating committee. Head of Service and the President of the Nigeria Labour Congress say the percentages arrived at by the negotiating committee is a win-win for both parties.
Because both sides sat down together and worked out this agreement together. It was a collective decision.
Clearly speaking, I think it was a collective process, and therefore what remains is actually to implement and workers to also benefit from it.
With the payment template being worked out, implementation of the adjustment is expected to start soon. In Abuja, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered a forensic audit of the operations of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, from 2001 to 2019. Receiving governors of the states being served by the commission, the president described as worrisome and intolerable the persistent public outcry over the activities of NDDC. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has details.
Exchanging views with the governors, led by Governor Sariaki Dixon of Bayelsa State, President Muhammadu Buhari said what is presently on ground in the South-South region does not justify the huge resources that have been made available to the NDDC over the years.
I tried to understand the interpretation of acts that dictate, the running of these institutions where we are putting so much money, especially the NDDC. Because the amount of money which the federal government is religiously allocating to NDDC, we would like to see the results on the ground. The project must be verifiable. I mean, you just can't say you spend so many billions and then when you go, it's only the lagoon you see, and so eventually be asked to explain certain issues.
The forensic audit, he believes, will clearly show what has been happening with the funds meant for enhancing the lives of the people in the region. The president, however, said that he will wait for the report of the audit before deciding on the next line of action regarding the NDDC. Governor Sariaki Dixon had earlier expressed the disappointment of the governors with the operations of the NDDC. He enumerated poor choice and shoddy handling of projects, uncompleted jobs, and lack of required support for the efforts of the states and local governments in the region covered by the organization as major areas of concern.
It's a systemic issue, it's a systemic crisis that we are here to highlight. So there's a disconnect, a major disconnect. And we feel concerned as key benefiting stakeholders.
Governor Dixon therefore called for the repositioning of the NDDC in order to achieve the objectives for which it was set up. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the federal government says it will spare no efforts at ensuring the development of Calabar so that the historic city can be opened up to the rest of Nigeria for the betterment of the people. This was while granting an audience to the Obong of Calabar, Edidem Ekbo Okun Abase, who called on him. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has that report.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive address.
President Muhammadu Buhari said although the city of Calabar had lost its preeminent status as the first capital of southern Nigeria to Lagos, his administration will not lessen ongoing efforts at developing that part of Nigeria towards ensuring happiness and betterment of the people. He said 3 critical roads projects are currently being undertaken by the federal government in the area for enhanced socio-economic development. The president noted that in order to speed up work on the Calabar, Ugep, Ikom, Ogoja Road in particular, plans are underway to incorporate it into the Sukuk bond to increase the level of funding of the construction work. He promised that dredging of the Calabar Harbour will also be undertaken as soon as some legal issues are settled by the Ministry of Transportation and the Nigerian Post Authority with the contractor. Similarly, President Buhari pledged full support to the Calabar Deep Sea Port project, adding that a number of electricity projects will soon follow. Enumerating other projects being executed in Cross River State by the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, such as the Industrial Park, the President also noted the execution of water projects by the NDDC, the development of a skills acquisition center for youths, and the construction of houses. The Obong of Calabar, Edidem Eko Okon Abasi, had earlier decried the disregard and neglect of the Calabar Kingdom in spite of its national historical significance. He called for the reversal of the demotion through the execution of projects in the areas of roads, power, maritime access, security, and border issues, as well as the plight of the displaced persons from the Bakassi Islands. The royal father, who congratulated President Buhari on his overwhelming victory in the February election and the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal, urged his administration to restore Calabar to what it lost to Lagos and Abuja. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
No plans to remove subsidy or hike in pump price of petroleum products. Petroleum Ministry tells Nigerians. This and more after this break.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Together, no matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together. Let's stop fighting each other. Let us live as one. It doesn't matter where you come from, your tribe or religion, man, woman or child. It doesn't matter who you are. Put Nigeria first. No matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together.
How can we develop when we're always in crisis? Families have become refugees in their country. No matter our differences, show some understanding.
No matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's live together.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Welcome back. Removal of oil subsidy or hike in the pump price of petroleum products are not options on the table of government. Minister of State Petroleum Resources Temipre Silva made this clear during the ministry's budget defense at a joint session of both Senate and House of Representatives committees on petroleum products, petroleum resources, upstream and downstream. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali has more.
Petroleum resources, the minister said, remain strategic to Nigeria.
not about to remove subsidy because it is difficult. We believe as a government that our people are already going through a lot of suffering. We don't believe that Nigerians are consuming over 60 million liters a day. There's a lot of smuggling.
The need to amend some laws governing the industry, such as the Deep Offshore Act, was a unanimous agreement of parties at the Budget's defense.
We have demonstrated our readiness and our commitment towards supporting Mr. President achieve his greater vision for Nigeria. And then that commitment was demonstrated at the Senate when we passed the Deep Offshore Inland Basin Act.
At another Budget's defense session by Ministry of Interior before the House Committee on Reformatory Institutions.
So when you look at what is actually there in totality to service the inmates, you know that already we are working on a tightrope.
It is important to note also that issues bedeviling our prisons are beyond the mere change of name, but of commitment and determination that will cause a positive change in the administration of our justice system.
Controller General of Nigeria Correctional Service, Jafar Ahmed, said the service is proposing a budget of 81 billion naira for 2020. Meanwhile, the House Committee on Solid Minerals was informed by the Minister of Solid Minerals and Steel Development
to diversify the economy with mining. So the World Bank, of course, is supporting this program.
The ministry will appear before the committee next week for budget defense. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed, alongside chief executives of parastatals under Information and National Orientation, have met with members of the Senate Committee on Information and National Orientation. Anthony Forsen reports.
The meeting is an interactive one aimed at familiarizing with members of the committee. The Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed, in his submission, said there is the need for more funding for information management and enlightenment because its budget size is grossly inadequate, citing some events he has to embark on for the image of the country.
We don't have enough fund to execute these programs. I will say that given what given the kind of target we're giving ourselves, we are everywhere in Nigeria. There's no geopolitical zone in Nigeria, sir. But in the last 3.5 years, we've not held town hall meetings. There's no geopolitical zone in Nigeria we have not visited to showcase the activities of government. We buy airtime on every major network. We are very active on the social media. But Mr. Chairman, sir, the kind of funding for the ministry, we can do much better with more funding.
Next in line was the Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, Malam Yakubu Ibn Mohammed. He explained to the committee the operational model of the NTA and its role in building an egalitarian society.
The state capital stations, the zonal centers, and the community stations have also, given a breakdown of the functionality and status of each of these stations. Abundant projects that we have in the NTA, most of them have to do with the community stations. The whole thing was started in 1999, but to date some of them are yet to be completed.
In quick succession, other chief executives took turns to explain to the committee what their challenges are and areas of need to be able to function optimally. Members of the committee equally took time to ask succinct questions that will enable them have a clear picture of their operation and how to gauge their budget size. The interaction ended on a smooth note, with the minister and his chief executives feeling satisfied, just as the senators. In Abuja, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
The Nigerian Air Force will establish its base in Damaturu, the Yobe State capital, as the construction of International Cargo Airport provides an opportunity to that effect. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, who disclosed this during an inspection and assessment visit to the cargo airport under construction, noted that the Air Force will also organize and conduct its counter-insurgency operation from the platform. Yunusa Suleiman reports.
The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, alongside Governor Mai Malabuni, were at the Damaturu International Cargo Airport under construction to inspect and assess facilities on ground as the Nigerian Air Force is interested in establishing its base in Yobe State. Located 25 kilometers away from Damaturu, the state capital, the cargo airport, when completed, the Chief of Air Staff noted, will serve as one of its platforms in the northeast sub-region. While at the government house, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar told his host that he is on a mission to reposition and transform the Nigerian Air Force, as more than 100 pilots, many engineers and technicians were trained.
It's much easier to have facilities such as refueling facilities so that our aircraft do not have to go back to the building to refuel. They can organize and operate from Yobe here and make sure that our communities in Yobe State are secured and safe.
Nigerian Air Force plays a very important role in the fight against the Boko Haram insurgency. The men and women of the Nigerian Air Force are patriots who continue to do our country proud by undertaking those aerial campaigns to take out terrorists and insurgent camps.
In Damaturu, Yunusa Suleiman, NTA News.
And that's Panorama, the last for the week. Nationwide is at 4. Thanks for watching. I am Lydia Odijeochi.
NTA, you come.